Libros Schmibros is a podcast exploring the people, books, movies, and ideas that Angelinos care about in a thoughtful way that even New Yorkers can understand. We're coming to you from Libros Schmibros, our nonprofit bilingual lending library in Boyle Heights, on the west coast of the country and the east bank of the mighty Los Angeles River.
So we're recording. Cool. So I'm Cuauhtemoc Hernandez. This is the Libros Schmibros podcast. For today's guest, we have Gajin Fujita, who is really well-known artist, painter, graffiti artist as well. And recently, his art was featured in the most recent LA Public Library card. So we're really excited for you to be here, and thank you for taking the time. So I just wanted to introduce myself, and like I said, I'm really happy that you're here. So how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Under all the circumstances that's going around in this world, you know, not only just LA, but just the world has been messed up. But yeah, I'm doing all right. It's gonna be like a weird 4th of July weekend. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like this in my life. But yeah, it's I'm excited to be on this Zoom interview with you, and I'm always down to represent Boyle Heights in LA, my roots, you know.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, maybe we'll get started with that, with Boyle Heights. So we're based here in Boyle Heights in Mariachi Plaza, and you grew up in Boyle Heights.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Boyle Heights. You know, my mom still lives off of 4th and Morena, right by the old 4th Street Bridge right there. Actually, right on the corner of Eagle and Lorena. And yeah, it was, you know, the Stevenson Library was the first library that I visited, and, you know, straight smack in the middle of Boyle Heights. And that's where my love and affinity for books came from. Well, actually, from my parents. You know, my dad was trying to educate us, my brothers and I. But yeah, that Boyle Heights was growing up in Boyle Heights was a trip, because I was like, my family were like the only few Japanese American families that lived in Boyle Heights. You know, it was predominantly Latinos, Mexican Americans, and but you know, I think I was able to create tough skin.
So the Boyle Heights was also historically a Japanese community, and there's still a pretty sizable Japanese community, like close to the Buddhist temple and the elementary school around there. Was that part of? Did you connect with the Japanese American community in Boyle Heights, or were you a little more?
You know what, I went for 1 year, like during, I think I was in 1st grade. So this is like maybe like the late 70s. And I know there was a Japanese language school that I had gone to on the weekend, like on a Saturday, right there off of, I want to say, was it First? There's a Food for Less right there by.
Yeah, the temple's right across the street, and the
yeah, right there. Yeah, the church right there. I used to. My mom put me in the Japanese language school for 1 year, and after that, my parents, you know, since they're immigrants from Japan, they said, forget paying, you know, for my tuition, and we'll just teach our kids here at home. And that's, you know, my mom taught us some of the language. Is kind of cool now that I look back to it.
And you mentioned growing up in Boyle Heights, it kind of, you had to build tough skin. I imagine, you mentioned before you've been like you were a minority among
amongst the
minorities.
minority.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you had to assimilate, or did you embrace that, like, standing out? Like, how did that work?
I think assimilation just came naturally. I mean, I think it's true for my brothers as well. It's yeah, uh, standing out. Just there was no choice, and of course, we were hazed and picked on in the beginning, but you begin to, I guess, grow on them, and they start to understand that you're no different. We all bleed red blood,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was cool. Like, I already knew the kids that I played with on the block, in my neighborhood. So growing up in Boyle Heights, it was kind of I got this warm family, kind of a community, warm community sense and feeling from all the neighbors and friends that I played with on the block. Every year during Christmas, they would invite us for tamales, and it was like all the mothers on the block were competing against each other. Who makes the best tamales? You better say it's mine, like. And yeah, like, food broke down a lot of barriers, I think, and they were warm and welcoming. Every one of the families that invited us, us meaning my brothers and I, and they would always invite us for, like, barbecues, carne asada, tamales during Christmas, and so I once I gotten used to, or kind of assimilated into the community, they were all warm and welcoming, and I still talk to few of my neighbors that I grew up with, as adults, and I think that's a great bond to hold,
Oh, that's awesome. So,
yeah.
I want to kind of shift a little bit. So,
Mm-hmm.
you grew up in Boyle Heights. You spent a lot of time in Boyle Heights, but then in high school, you went to Fairfax High, so you had to go towards Hollywood, right? And I've read that you had to take, like, 2-hour bus rides one way and then 2 hours the other way. So what did you learn about the LA landscape by being bused to school and being introduced to these different neighborhoods? Like, what was how did it differ from your upbringing?
Well, of course, I started out in the magnet program, actually, when I went up to middle school, junior high school. So I went to a junior high, which was a multi-graded school. It was from 4th grade all the way through high school, called LACES, Center for Enriched Studies. Mm-hmm. And they were located in Mid-City, off of Pico in Arlington. And so that was, like, really the beginning of my journeys towards the West, passing downtown. Up until then, I did not know that there was, like, this whole vast community and county of LA that was out there. And riding the bus, it opened my eyes up to see, first and foremost, how there's a difference in classes. As you head more west, the communities start getting more wealthier and richer. You can kind of see it, and it's obvious, like and blatant, like day, um, and that's what I noticed, and it taught me about the landscape of Los Angeles in the basin here. Yeah.
And did you like when you were in high school? I imagine you probably spent a lot of time on Melrose and
Yeah. I mean, um, I actually didn't take the Melrose bus because it was always jam packed after school. All the kids would be, so there would be like five. I was talking to this with my friend that I went to Fairfax with, and because he started catching tags on the RTDs, what we now call Metro. Um, so the RTD buses would be lined up in front of Fairfax High on Melrose, like 5-6 buses deep. And every one of them was just filled to capacity because all the kids wanted to go home right after school. And the sidewalk was just jam-packed with people. And so that gave a great opportunity for like the taggers to go on, and catch tags on the bus, because the bus drivers couldn't really see because they were blocked, their views were blocked with all the students that were trying to jump on the bus, and so yeah, I did walk around Melrose, but I took the Fairfax line down when I went home, and I played baseball and sports, so I had to stay after school. So I spent a lot of time like on the field there at Fairfax, but more time on Fairfax, on Wilshire, and I took the Wilshire because the Wilshire bus, the lines had an express line.
like a rapid kind of.
Yeah. And so you didn't have to, like, the buses didn't have to stop at every block, it would only stop at like major intersections like La Cienega, Fairfax, La Brea, Western, and so on and so forth till you end up in downtown. Then I transferred onto like the 31 or the 30 that would take me, or no, I'm sorry, I transferred onto the 18 that was the 6th Street, and it took me through the 6th Street Bridge back onto Whittier, and I would get home like that. That 18 line would stop at Whittier and Lorena.
Yeah, that must have been really, like that juxtaposition, like
Yeah.
like East LA and the West Side, like like were you already at that point tagging or doing graffiti?
Yeah, I was well into it. So I started, doing graffiti and tagging on the buses like in junior high when I was going to that LACES in Mid City, because that was around when I started Laces. It was around 84, 85, and that's right when the fire of hip hop like moved out west. People were breakdancing. I mean, I went to Lorena Street School Elementary, and right when I was about to graduate and leaving Lorena, they were already breakdancing and popping and stuff like that. So the wave of that trend was already hitting the West Coast and LA very hard. And then we transitioned from breakdancing to doing graffiti. And I met a bunch of sort of outcasts or, kids who liked hip hop. And, we all saw that sort of documentary called Star Wars that aired on PBS Channel 28 back then, and we were all just fascinated by it. Just like, wow, kids in New York do this stuff, like, wow, that's crazy. And is like a totally, you know, we started out with like markers and little tools, you know, to get your name up. And then the 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 ultimate was to have to be able to use the spray can and have can control. That was the biggest thing. And you know, yeah, so spray painting and doing graffiti started like around 85, 86 for me.
And your experience is really unique too, because you've mentioned that your dad used to go out with you sometimes. So can you talk about that? Because usually it's like, you know, like frowned upon, like, you know, parents want to keep you off of this.
Yeah.
So how was that? Like, because your dad's background, he was also an artist, a painter, right?
Yes, a painter. And, you know, he came out from Japan with my mom in 1970 to go to Otis Art College and study painting. But yeah, when, you know, when I started getting really heavily into graffiti, like going out at night, my house was a little tiny, so it was hard to kind of sneak out, you know, 2 a.m. So my friend Tony, I remember my friend Tony, this guy who, good friend of mine from the STN K2S crew, would pull up to my house like 2 a.m. and come knocking on my door. My dad would still be up, right? And I would never forget this. Tony would just be like, "Hey, it's Gajin here," because my dad would answer the door, you know, open the door, and you know, my dad would be like, "Gajin, hey, your friend's here, you know, you guys gonna go do art or whatever?" And you know, I played it off like, "Yeah, we're gonna go paint, like do art," you know. And my dad said, "Well, just be careful." He knew we were doing graffiti, but he just said, "Just be careful, and you know, make sure he comes back," you know. And that was it. He let me go out. I was like, wow. And then we used to go painting in graffiti yards. There were a few of them in LA. The West Side, there was the Motor National yard by Motor National. And then here, the Belmont Tunnels, right by Belmont High School. And by the East LA Occupational Center, right underneath the Occupational Center by the Ramona Gardens projects, there was a yard called the Panic Zone. It was a train yard, basically, and there were tall walls there right under the Occupational Center. And we used to go paint there. And yeah, my dad came along one time. He said, "I want to watch you guys." Like, he was fascinated by the spray can tool, obviously, that sprayed out color, you know. It's like a sort of like a futuristic tool, a painting tool, you know. And so, yeah, he was fascinated by it. And yeah, he came out and painted with us.
And he got in the tunnels too? And
what's that?
He got in the tunnels too, in the Belmont tunnels? And
No, he didn't come to the Belmont tunnels, but I do remember he was always very encouraging, and you know, he loved that we were doing art on the street, out on the streets. And friends of my friends and I had painted the entrance to the freeway in the Aliso Pico projects, right off of 4th and near Clarence, I think. I don't know what right by that freeway entrance, there was a building. We did a piece called Education, and I think Edward James almost used it in the book. But it was a project introduced to us by my friend Heaven Carlos, that lived in the project and worked closely with Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries. Yeah. And my dad was posted up right there, just watching us paint the whole day, the whole weekend. You know, it was fun times. Yeah, and I miss my dad. I wish he was around to see what has come about and where graffiti has been taken to now. You know, today it's like, wow, I would have never imagined when I was doing graffiti out in the streets that it would blow up so much. You know, it's global, you know, and people are practicing graffiti all over the world now, and it's amazing to see the level of skill and just excellence in the craft some of these artists have produced now. It's it always intrigues me, but that's just evolution of the nature of mankind, I think, you know.
So as far as your training in school, you mentioned your dad wanted to go to Otis. You ultimately ended up going to Otis. Before you transferred to Otis, you were at East LA Community College. Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit about that experience? How your experience going to ELAC helped you
Yeah,
on your path?
sure. So East LA College was just as how junior colleges, I guess, work, was like a stepping stone, you know. And I met some great instructors and professors there as well that were very encouraging to me, because I was lost. That was right after I had graduated Fairfax High. Oh, and by the way, Fairfax High had a visual arts magnet program, so it was I was lucky to have been going to these schools that had art classes and promoted, you know, the study of arts in all forms, not just visual arts, but theater, music, you know. I think now the public schools lack a lot of these classes, which is sad. I wish they would bring them back, because it certainly really helped me. And that's what kept the fire of creativity burning inside me, and how I ended up in East LA College. Because after Fairfax, I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to do, and I was out there partying with my friends, you know, and doing graffiti, and just not having to worry about, and no pressure about what I'm going to be doing in the future. But you know, it not slowly, but it rapidly catches up to you. And a friend of mine, Paul, who's another graffiti artist, his father knew my father. They both, our parents were painters and artists, and Japanese as well. So I was hanging out with Paul a lot, and one day we were like, you know, getting wasted, and we were just thinking like, damn, maybe we should take up some art classes again, you know. And we decided to take our asses to East LA College and take a bunch of art classes, art history, and soon after, I knew, like, I've accumulated all these credits, and the painting professors and drawing professors there took note of us, I guess, and saw that, you know, we can take our talent to a higher education, and they encouraged us into looking into Otis and the art colleges that we're blessed to have in our city, you know. And that's so East LA College was a great experience, and great many numbers of awesome artists have gone to East LA College as well. Ken Twitchell, gosh, I'm sorry, I can't think of his name.
Well, like a lot of the ASCO people and
ASCO people, but as well, oh my gosh, I should know his name. I'm drawing a blank. He's just super famous. But yeah, you know, there were many great artists that came out of East LA College, and I'm glad that I followed the tradition, so to speak. And yeah, it was a good experience. Although I hated art history. I think I failed like twice in art history class. It was just due to having the class being at night, you know, from 7 to 10. My attention span wasn't there, and I couldn't pay attention. It was just because art history is so lengthy and deep, you know. It's like
it's world history,
yeah.
So once you were at, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I remember it's Gronk.
Oh,
Gronk
yeah, Gronk. Awesome.
Yeah. And I think Edward James Olmos as well.
Wow. So when you were at Otis, that's when you were approached by the LA Louvre. Was that around that time?
Well, no. So even at Otis, I did my bachelor's there, and Peter Gould of LA Louvre Gallery, the owner, he was part of the board or the trustees. I think he was part of a board member at Otis, and he took notice of my sort of thesis show of all the seniors before we graduate. We that the college throws, and I guess he claims that he saw my work then, like in '97. But you know, I was getting ready to. I was already graduating, and LA Louvre didn't pick me up until after I graduated grad school from UNLV. Okay. Yeah.
So we've gone over the 30 minutes, but hopefully we can talk for 10 more minutes or
It's okay.
Okay.
As long as you got time, man.
Yeah, no. I have so many questions, but I just want to be respecting your time. So
thank you.
Since we're on the subject of LA Louvre, you know, it's one of the premier galleries in LA and the world, really.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I just want to congratulate you because recently you won your exhibit, Wicked Beauty from 2002, won the best exhibit in the gallery's history, and it's had a really long history, over 40 years, and you went up against David Hockney, so that's monumental. So congrats on that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. You know, I think that was just all for fun. It was like funsies. You know.
No, but they have a great roster. Like I went last year. I saw Alison Sarr's exhibit there, and they like, so what makes that gallery so unique for those that might not be familiar?
Well, for one, like you said, they have a long history in the city of LA. You know, they've been there in Venice for over 40 years, and they show they specifically show artists that are contemporary American contemporary artists, as well as European contemporary artists. And you know, some of the artists that have been there like way before me are are now much older, but are very established and uh, you know world renowned. They're not like me. They're really world renowned. um, so I'm blessed that that they picked me up, and I've always had a great rapport with the owner Peter there, and it's been a great ride. I've been there for almost nearly 20 years because my first solo show was in 2002, Wicked Beauty. And then before that, I was in a group show called Rogue Wave, and that's when I got recruited in 2001 into the gallery at LA Louvre. But yeah, I think they show awesome artists from LA as well as from internationally, and the artists seem to most of the artists seem to be really honed in on the craft, the making of and the creating of their pieces, as opposed to there are artists out there like Jeff Koons who mass produce a piece, and they probably don't even touch it. They don't even work on it themselves. It's like on a conveyor belt being mass produced. Whereas LA, I think the artists that are represented by LA Louvre, they all sort of have that human touch in their works, and I think, and for me, that's very important, because whenever I see like a Caravaggio or some work from the Renaissance or some work from history long time ago, I'm always just in awe to be in front of something where the artist had a hand in it, the human touch, the pragmatism in it, I think is very important to me. And that's what I think LA Louvre focuses on in their roster of artists. And I think that's what makes it special.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. So I want to talk about a few of your paintings. I mentioned earlier, I chose 5 paintings that that you've done very recently, this year, and some from last year. And I want to talk about these paintings because the subject of the city of LA is really prominent. So if you can just talk about some of the symbols that you've used. We'll start off with a No Man's Land that you did you just did recently, and that it has the landscape of LA, and it features the street sign of North Spring. Oh, thank you for putting it up there. Oh, it's beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about why you chose to depict that area in LA? Yeah.
Well, this was, I think it's like a quasi series that I was after the landscapes of the city that I kind of walked upon. And it just so happened for this particular No Man's Land painting, we I hate to say this, but my wife and I and my friend, we were drinking at there's a brewery right across the street from this corner, North Spring. It's by the cornfield.
The State Historic Park.
Yeah. What is it called? Highland Park Brewery. And my friend and I were catching tags on the news, uh, the newspaper box and stuff, you know. And my wife happened to take some pictures of that corner, of us like catching tags and stuff. And later on, I saw the my wife shared the photograph with what she took with me, and I thought, wow, this composition looks really cool, you know, and dynamic. So you know, it was the photo of the telephone poles and the newspaper box and all the things that you might catch in the city, objects, you know. And also I was, now that I live in Echo Park, kind of in the hills, there's a lot of, it's like being in a forest near the city. And I see lots of animals that are that have like assimilated with mankind, and you know, so you got coyotes, raccoons, squirrels, owls, red-tailed hawks, and so I have been seeing a lot of red-tailed hawks and coyotes, and they're you know, they kind of are rivals because they're after food, you know, and so that's where the idea of using these they're called tengus, half man, half bird, sort of mythological characters from Japanese myth, kind of going at it with this coyote at the bottom. And I thought it would be nice to kind of juxtapose it with this composition of Spring Street in the corner. And, you know, I was trying to think of what they call that area.
It's like Chinatown,
you know,
right?
Yeah, it's right by Chinatown, right on the edge of Chinatown and the beginning of like Lincoln Heights. But you're not quite in Lincoln Heights yet because you haven't crossed the train tracks. So I was asking my friend, like, what would you call, you know, my friend Alex Deffer, who is another graffiti writer and a childhood friend. And I asked him, like, what would you call this area? Because he knows a lot of the layout and the landscape of LA, and you know, and sort of like the neighborhoods that surround these areas. And he was like, I don't know, man. It's like a no man's land right there. There's nobody. There's no neighborhood that claims that area, really, you know. And I was like, man, no man's land. That sounds tough, you know, like that sounds. But you know, of course, if you look back into history, all of LA was Tonga, the Native Americans, the Indians, Native Americans, I should say. I gotta be PC now, man. I can't just blurt out Indian anymore.
yeah. No, but yeah, no, that's the reference, yeah, to like the indigenous area is, you know, like you mentioned like the coyotes and, you know, these animals that have survived, you know, through different periods, you know, of colonization, and they're still here.
Yeah, and you know, I've been kind of in my mind. Those are the intrigue, fascinations I've been going through, you know, and that's why I created this piece. And then a lot of people noticed because I put up the North Spring Street sign.
Yeah.
And they recognize it immediately because it's the corner where Nick's Cafe is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and people are like, oh yeah, they recognize it. That's Nick's Cafe right there, you know. But I also like to sort of use the sort of city street landscape because those who know, you know.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about that. And since you mentioned the street sign, another
Mhm.
painting that you just did, I think you mentioned it was the last painting that you did last year, Home Field, Home
Yes.
Field LA, and that has another street sign also, and I recognize it. I think it's pretty close to maybe where you grew up, right? Lorena Street.
That's right. That's the street sign right on the corner of my mom's house.
Okay.
So what I've been doing is just taking pictures with my phone, you know, and I've always grew up at my mom's, you know, my parents' home. You could always see, because it's a little higher up. The house sits on like a hillside, and I was always able to see the cityscape, the downtown scape,
Mm-hmm.
from the front porch of where I grew up, you know. And but for home field, the painting home field, I thought it would be interesting because I've been on this sort of taking pictures of street signs and elements of the street, specifically to LA, and my experiences, you know, where the sidewalks that I've walked on. So yeah, I took a photo of that corner at my mom's house actually, and it's the stop sign right on that corner. And I always tripped out on that street sign, Lorena, because it wasn't put up right. They messed it up because it swings up, or it's placed at an angle, and I was tripped out on that. So anyways, I was able to use that, and so home field LA is like kind of like a quasi self-portrait.
Mm.
There's a silhouette of me, a figure, and that's supposed to be myself, but I gold leafed the inside of the figure with the patterns of water rippling. It's like a Asiatic design, textile pattern. But some people have said that it looks like the Wi-Fi icon. Which I'm cool with too. I'm glad, you know, it makes it even more contemporary. And you know, I want to be ethereal, you know, although everywhere, you know, and spread my energy. So yeah, it's and then, you know, I'm into sports, so you know, that's where I grew up. That's the corner where I grew up. So I thought I'd call it home field, because it's basically like my backyard. And also painted the bird of paradise flowers. You know, something that I grew up with. It was in the side of my yard. Every day I saw it, but it also, I realized it's also the flower of our city.
Yeah.
Bird of paradise. So yeah, it's like a self-portrait, that piece.
So I want to talk about a couple more pieces, because some of the older pieces you've worked on, you did K2S Crew and then Kids Gone Bad. So the references to your tagging crews, and I want to talk about how the symbolism. You know, you use a Japanese symbolism and, you know, East LA American symbolism. So the samurai is a really prominent symbol that you use, and I noticed that you depicted your crew as samurai. So can you talk about that connection to you? Like, did you see yourself as a samurai or your crew, or what was like the connection?
Well, I've always been fascinated with samurais, and the K2S crew piece. I referenced an old woodblock print of, and here's the K2S piece.
Yeah.
The
So
crew
samurai
piece.
is wearing like raiders
Yeah.
outfit.
So originally, these samurais are from a true story of Japanese history. The 47 Ronins, which it's a tale of loyalty. They avenged their lord's suicide, or harakiri. Their lord. So 47 Ronin samurais went and took revenge for the killing of their lord, and they all committed seppuku at the end. And their graves, their graves are still there. Like, I think in Tokyo, somewhere in Tokyo, you could visit the graves of these samurai, and that, that just blows my mind. And this story is so popular. They all, in Japan, they always play like the movies of the 47 Ronins and, during New Year's. But anyways, I just thought it would be cool, because graffiti crews sort of are like, I wouldn't say like a street gang, but it's a group of young people, or young guys that have a thing in common. We all want to, create and get our names up and be recognized. And I just thought it would be a great twist if I could use the original woodblock print image and give it like a more contemporary twist. And yeah, I would love to be a samurai, but I don't think I have the discipline to be a samurai, because it's pretty rigid, I think, to become a samurai.
But it does require a lot of work ethic and discipline to be a successful street graffiti crew.
Sure. Yeah, and some of the qualities of being disciplined, I think, can be relative to samurai group and graffiti crew. So that was sort of the idea behind giving the twist. And then of course the sports use of the sports logos, like the Raiders, for instance. I grew up liking the Raiders more than the Rams, but sports like football is also like a group sport, and it has that group mentality, and they're almost like warriors, so that's like another added twist, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. So I'll just ask one more about the piece that you did for the LA Public Library card.
Yes.
The Guardian Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of your pieces deal with some sort of struggle. It's usually two different forces struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you mentioned the character Kintaro. It's
Yeah.
an amulet for our city. You say to bring peace and positivity. I want to kind of talk about that, and also how it connects with the other piece you'd made, the Reina de Los Angeles, because in that one you have the Queen of Dragons, who you also say that is in a way protecting the city. So can you talk about that? How you use these symbols, and you include these amulets, and you talk about protecting the city. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, you know, in Garden Angel, Kintaro um, translates to golden boy, and in Japan, the Japanese kind of symbolize him because he's a mythological character, and you know, he was born from a mountain woman and a samurai, and showed great amounts of strength, and so Kintaro would be the symbols and his images would be used during Boys' Day, which is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo out here, and especially with families that have boys as their children, and Kintaro is like a symbol of strength, courage, and all the things that, you know, parents would want their children to grow up having, these sort of values instilled upon their children. And a lot of times the woodblock print artists, like for instance this particular Guardian Angel image, I referenced an old woodblock print done by Yoshitoshi. They would image them in quelling evil, and like for instance, he right here he's taking down a demon, and also Kintaro during New Year's, there's images of him throwing. There's a tradition and a custom in, like at Buddhist temples, I guess they ward off evil during New Year's by throwing soybeans, and yeah, households do it too during New Year's to sort of ward off evil spirits and evil out of the house, and to bring in good luck, good fortune, and good spirit and positivity, I guess. So that's how I understand Kintaro, and I thought it would be great if he served as an amulet or like a protector, because he is out there to quell evil and demons and all the negative stuff that goes on with us humans. And you know, I just thought we have a lot of negative stuff out here in our city that needs to be quelled, and I just figured Kintaro would be a great symbol and or serve as a great symbol to quell all the negative stuff that goes on in the city. And then the Dragon Queen is sort of the same idea, but it could, for her, it's a little different. She's more like a omnipotent character figure. So when I painted that painting, I was thinking more of like, what if there was something so much larger than mankind, you know, something that's omnipotent, something that mankind would fear. Mm-hmm. And so she's being like a protector, but also and watching over us in our city, or over the world globally. But then at the same time, she's kind of like frowning at us too, and looking at us and saying, "Look at you idiots, man! Like, now look at what you had gone and done, you know." So that was what I had in mind when I was painting Queen of the Angels.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all this. And
No problem, man.
yeah, so you've offered the city of LA multiple amulets and multiple ways of warding off
Hope
evil.
so.
Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, and we're all really grateful. You're definitely one of the leading figures right now in LA, and I appreciate you for taking the time. So I don't want you to think I'm getting greedy by asking so many more questions. I just have one more question to,
Sure.
to end the interview. This is something like a recurring question, and it goes well with a lot of your work, because you reference streets and in particular places in LA. So I wanted to ask you, is there an intersection in LA that holds particular importance or value to you, or maybe to LA, that you would memorialize?
Memorialize, particular intersection. Wow.
Or a street.
Or a street. Man, I think I'm being stumped on this one. Yeah. I've always liked Sunset Boulevard. Just because it continues, it's nonstop from the east end all the way out to the ocean, to the Pacific. It continues. You can stay on Sunset Boulevard and you'll see all the different classes that I was talking to you about earlier as well. It's one continuous street that you can end up to the Pacific, to the edge of LA, and the continent. And so, it's kind of cliche. Yeah, Sunset Boulevard, it's really synonymous with like Hollywood and all that. But, it starts actually from the train station, the Pueblo Pico House, right there, Olvera Street, right? It starts right there, and you could take it all the way out west to the edge of the continent, and I think that's really cool. Like, that's really cool I think you could see a lot of LA if you go down that street, Sunset Boulevard. And so I think Sunset Boulevard will
that's a great answer. Yeah, that's a great answer, because it's right. You're right. You see the class stratification in one street, and how it starts off as, because on the east side it's Cesar Chavez, and then
right.
Next, and it becomes Sunset, and I think a lot of people would learn about LA just by taking the 2 bus and going to Sunset.
And as a student, junior high and high school, I used to take that bus, the 2, and I was always blown away that I could ride the bus all the way to the beach, and so it's kind of cliche, but I think it, if tourists want to really check out LA, they can jump on the 2 bus and see, you know, the different levels of classes, as well as just like a great deal of what LA has to offer. You
Well, thank you so much. And
know. You're
and,
welcome.
and thanks to Angela, your wife, also for helping set this up.
Oh, she's like all smiles right now.
No, and yeah, I mentioned it was going to be 30 minutes, but you had such great stories, and
It's okay. I'm glad that I can share, and I hope people will be into it. But I'm glad I can share.
yeah. Yeah, I actually I was watching you yesterday. You did a
Oh,
whole
you
presentation on dragons on the LA Louvre, and people could probably still check it out. It's on their Instagram live. But yeah, that was phenomenal. Like how you
Oh, thanks.
gave a whole like art history class on dragons and representation of East.
You know, I think dragons could just be like a whole series because there's so many information, and it's almost like cliche. You know, dragons are so popular worldwide. You know, but I hope I was able to give out some tidbits of information that wasn't that people didn't know about. You know,
Yeah, no,
that's
that's
all.
I didn't want to ask you a question about dragons because I feel like you covered a lot yesterday. And I encourage people to check that out. I learned a lot, and I
Oh, well,
appreciated the way
cool.
that you kind of talked about the way that dragons are portrayed in the West as something, as something like demonic and something that we
Mhm.
have to destroy. But in the East and in other cultures, you mentioned like in Mesoamerica, also like with serpents, like
Oh
they're
yeah, the winged serpent. Yeah.
yeah. It's they're destructive forces in some ways, but ultimately, yeah, they're not inherently evil. And
Right. And
yeah.
they're kind of a giver of life, you know.
Mm.
It yeah. It's amazing. Like you know, world history. You can learn about world history just trying to learn about dragons. It's crazy.
Well, thank you so much. And
You're welcome,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah. Hopefully, I could see one of your exhibits in the coming years.
Oh, I have a question. You probably can answer it. I had a hard time pronouncing dragon in I don't think it's Spanish language. It's like indigenous language, right? Quetzalcoatl.
Oh, Quetzalcoatl or Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
That's how you say it. Yeah.
I might
And
not
that's
even be pronouncing it right, but yeah, it's
uh,
and the Aztec, the feathered serpent or the plumed.
right. Yeah. So I hope I didn't like mess it up, man. Damn.
No, don't worry. Most Spanish speakers can't pronounce it.
Because it's not Spanish,
No,
right?
no. It's it's Nahuatl.
Nawa, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my name Cuauhtemoc is Nahuatl too. So
Right.
yeah.
That's a dope name. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually,
Anyways,
the name Cuauhtemoc. I mean, not to make it about myself, but the name Cuauhtemoc is a descending eagle.
oh, dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. See, that's the thing about like Western names. They don't have any like meaning aside from it's just like a facade, you know. It don't go any deep than just the spelling of it, you know, or um and if it does have any meaning, it's something dumb like, you know, shoemaker or something, you know. It's like whereas like the different cultures in the world, and especially I see it true with the Asian cultures, like because like Japanese use the Chinese characters. Even the characters have different meanings, or it's based on a specific thing, but it can be used into different variations of the language, I guess. And I feel like it's so much like other languages and other cultures have so much deeper like meaning behind their language. It's
What does Gajin?
crazy.
What does Gajin mean?
So Jin is person, and Ga is uh, grace and elegance.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, but yours is dope, man. I like that. The it's the ascending eagle.
Yeah, or it's what's the term when like an eagle is coming down for its prey? It's like
Oh, like yeah, I forget.
like swooping or something, like swooping eagle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what comes into my mind when you said that?
What?
The Judas Priest album cover.
I'm not familiar with it. Which one?
It's like it's one of the albums. It's like an eagle, like a metallic eagle, kind of swooping down. You know.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
And when you're painting in I think it's No Man's Land, you have a couple of half birds, and they're kind of coming down like that.
Yeah,
too.
they're coming down to swoop on the coyote.
Yeah. That's
Anyway.
a dope painting, man. I
Oh, thank you.
yeah. Your most recent paintings I've been particularly really excited about.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because the whole like geography, the connection to the story of
Uh-huh.
LA, and
Yeah.
hopefully
Thanks,
that's
man.
the whole series, or I don't know if it already is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little series. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and
Thank you.
yeah, I'd love to stay in touch, and yeah, hopefully, we can meet up in person one of these.
Yeah, maybe one day I can like drop by your library. Is it open?
Right now, we're only open. We're only doing a curbside pickup.
Curbside. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But yeah, when all this fucking shit turns over, because the world's all flipped around. But yeah, once we start settling back to normalcy, some kind of normalcy, I'd like to visit the library.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do a shirt swap or something.
All right. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
But thanks for having the library in the community, man. I'm pretty sure it means a lot to a lot of the young people there, and just the community in general. So thank you.
Cool. Well, have a great rest of your day, and like I keep saying, I appreciate you.
Oh man, all good, and have a good 4th of July weekend, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just be doing nothing.
Likewise.
Cool.
All right, man.
Peace.
Thank you.
So ends another episode of Libros Schmibros, recorded at the bilingual nonprofit Libros Schmibros Lending Library in Boyle Heights. By all means, follow us online in all the old familiar places, or email us via info@libroschmibros.org. By the way, we couldn't do this podcast without the whole Libros team, Cuauhtemoc, Colleen, Diana, and Alberto. And all of them would kill me if I didn't add this. Please consider visiting libroschmibros.org, hitting the donut button, the donate button, and giving us a gift. We put good free books into people's hands 5 days a week here at Libros, right across from Mariachi Plaza, up in the old Boyle Hotel. I'm David Kippen, and there'll always be a free book for you, and thousands more to borrow here at Libros Schmibros.